I struggle with productivity. My work usually involves intense bouts of extreme focus, followed by long periods of foggy, unfocused work. We usually hear about productivity from highly focused, driven type A personalities, and that's definitely not me. So I'm trying a couple of different productivity techniques to let you know which one actually works best. Now, the Pomodoro Technique is one of the most commonly used productivity tools available. You start by choosing a single task rather than task hopping and jumping between a number of different things. You then set a timer for 25 minutes, work only on the thing that you chose for those 25 minutes. When it runs out, you take a 5-minute break and then get back to it. You have to focus entirely on the singular task. This means you can't answer emails, scroll through LinkedIn, check your phone, or do anything other than the task you're supposed to be doing within that time block. Usually you'll do 2 to 3 5-minute breaks between your 25-minute Pomodoros until you decide to take a 15 to 30-minute break after you've burnt out so you can have a full period of recovery. Now, an important thing to consider when following Pomodoro is that your breaks can't be filled with highly engaging, stimulating activities, meaning you can't go through social media or hop on a phone call or jump around and start doing task hopping. Your breaks need to be filled with something that's going to recharge you and take you away and allow you to settle so that you can get into your work more effectively in your next bout. This means staring at a wall, going for a quick walk, grabbing some water, or doing anything that doesn't mean a bunch of information comes into your brain. Now, there's some fantastic tools you can use to follow the Pomodoro. There's a few websites you can use that allow you to start the timer, input what exact task you're doing, and track exactly how much you're doing. It alerts you when your time's done, and it allows you to keep track of all the work you have done previously. Or, if you really want to, you could just use a timer on your phone, setting it to 25 minutes, and when that ends, switching it over to 5 minutes so that you can get your break time. What I wouldn't suggest, though, is looking at a wall clock, because the whole point of the technique is to be entirely engaged in your work. And so you need something external to tell you when you're done rather than constantly checking a clock, which is going to take you away from doing what you need to do. I've been experimenting with the Pomodoro technique for a while, and these are the benefits I've noticed. Parkinson's law states that work expands the time allotted to complete it. For example, you may have been given 6 months to complete a presentation. Because you've been given so much time, that presentation becomes this massive, petrifying obstacle that you have to overcome. And so you spend hours toiling away at it, trying to figure out all the little details and making sure the entire thing is perfect. Or you may take the other route, where because it's so petrifying, you end up procrastinating it until the last minute and becomes this panicked rush. Or even if you allot a certain amount of time to it every day, you're going to expand the amount of work and drop the intensity because you have so much time to complete it. But say it was Monday and you were given this presentation to do for Wednesday, you would still be able to get it done within that 2-day block, and probably at the same quality level, if not even better. This is often a problem in university where students are given months to complete a research paper or a thesis or something along those lines. But instead of taking the months they've been given to complete it, they end up leaving it for the last week, spend all-nighters but get it done and get an A. There was a great example of this working in my favor in university, where I studied screenwriting. I had an assignment where I needed to complete 2 episodes of a TV series in a single term. I wrote my first episode over 6 weeks, carefully considering absolutely everything, making sure everything was going to be perfect, considering dialogue, pacing, and story structure. I was meticulous, and ultimately very proud of the result. The second episode I wrote on the day that the assignment had to be submitted. Completely rushed, no planning, and very frantically written. But I figured the grade from my masterpiece would be enough and it would carry me through to get a passing grade for the term. When I got my grades back, I was completely shocked. The episode that I'd worked so hard, spent so much time on, ended up getting a terrible grade, barely getting a pass. The one which I'd brushed off and rushed through got a distinction. This made no sense to me at all. But what it did demonstrate to me is that time limits didn't diminish the quality of my work and instead potentially aided in it, allowing me to become more focused and not second guessing my work. Now, while this rule may not apply to an engineer who's checking the safety of a bridge, where scrutiny would be massively important, doesn't mean they won't be able to be more effective in short, focused bouts of work. The same thing applies to an 8-hour workday. If you come in with a to-do list, but no planning on how you're going to structure your day, you're just going to get those things done in the amount of time you have in the day. That might not be the most effective. Whereas if you planned and been focused with exactly what you're going to do in certain time blocks, you'd probably be able to get all those things done in the day in maybe half the time. You'll likely end up task hopping, switching, losing focus, chatting with co-workers, and generally having a slower level of output. But if you set Pomodoros throughout the day, you know exactly what you're going to be doing in bouts of time, and you can focus entirely on it and get it done without distraction, giving you time to wind down when you finish what you need to do and get peace of mind that you're no longer thinking about it. I have a bit of a problem with how much I think I can take on, and I regularly overcommit to things, because I often think I can do more than is actually realistic. And I'll sit down to do something that I think is going to take an hour, and it actually ends up taking about 8. And the next time I have to do that thing again, I forget how long it took me the last time, and I go back to thinking it's going to take me an hour. This often happens when we get caught up in a task where time just sort of seems to flow past us without us really realizing how long things are actually taking. But if you use Pomodoros, and especially the ones on the websites where you can track exactly what you've done, it's very clear how long things take you, because you can track exact 25-minute blocks of the work that you've done where you've only done that one thing. And that gives you a much more realistic understanding of how long it takes to do things. When you don't have clear guidelines about what you're supposed to be doing, or you set a time block of a couple of hours to do one thing, you will inevitably end up losing focus and switching tasks and hopping around along the way. But by using Pomodoro, you are limited to exactly 25 minutes. And are forced to take short breaks that allow you to refocus and get ready to go again. And if you're like me and you have lots of different things that you need to do but don't like doing one thing at a time, you can mix up your Pomodoros and switch from doing 25 minutes of one thing, taking your break, and then doing 25 minutes of another thing, and then repeating those Pomodoros until you get sick of that one and moving back to another task. One Pomodoro could be linked to research and writing, while the other one could be putting together a presentation. And when you get sick of doing the presentation, you can go back to doing the research and writing until you get both things done. But having a clear understanding that you've got this limited amount of time allows you to make an agreement with your brain that doesn't feel too overwhelming. 25 minutes is much more digestible than 4 to 5 hours. Unfortunately, the technique is not perfect, and there are a few shortfalls for a lot of people. The first is that the Pomodoro Technique assumes that you have a quiet environment where you can do focused work. But this may not be possible if you work in an open, vibrant office with lots of different things going on around you. I work from home, so to test this theory, I went to a busy coffee shop to see what the experience is like in a busier environment. Fortunately, this limitation can be easily overcome with a pair of decent headphones, where you can listen to brown noise, binaural beats, or something that allows you to take your focus off of the environment around you. But it doesn't stop the other issue which is common with offices, and that is constant distractions. You may be trying to do focus work, so you turn off notifications on your computer, put on your headphones, and start getting into your work. And just as you're getting into flow, Sarah from accounts comes, taps on your shoulder, and asks if you've submitted those documents that she's been asking for on Slack. You tell her you'll get to it in a couple of minutes. You put back on your headphones and try to get right back into work. It's now starting to feel much more laborious. And just as you start to get back into it, Mike comes over with a cup of coffee in hand and starts telling you about his round of golf on the weekend. Now you like Mike, and you have some stories that you want to tell him, but now isn't exactly the time. After he's eventually done chatting and walks away, you put back on your headphones and finally try to get back into it. And after about 2 minutes, your alarm goes off and your Pomodoro is done. In environments like this, it will inevitably be difficult to follow Pomodoro. But on the same note, it would be difficult to follow any productivity technique, especially if your environment seems to be actively fighting against you at all times. So you need to probably set some boundaries. Some other instances where it doesn't work is a highly collaborative environment, where you're constantly meeting with other people and engaging with others to do tasks. Unless you all collectively decide to do Pomodoro together and take your breaks where you stare at walls together, but then it's going to feel a little bit like a robot factory. Or potentially if you're in sales, where engaging with people, having chats, and understanding them fundamentally as humans is much more beneficial than doing bouts of focused work. A salesperson would not necessarily benefit from Pomodoro, unless, for instance, they were doing cold calls, in which case they could do 25 minutes on of doing calls, 5 minutes off, 25 minutes on. Or if you're someone who very easily gets into flow and is highly stimulated by your work, having a timer go off after 25 minutes will likely take you out of your flow state. So if you find it easy to get into flow after a couple of minutes and you can stay in it for a few hours and that's going to be your most focused time, then there's no point in following Pomodoro. And there you have it. The Pomodoro Technique. A game changer for many, but not a one-size-fits-all solution. Experiment with it, adapt it to your needs, and remember that finding your perfect productivity strategy is a journey. Whether you're a task-hopping creative or a methodical planner, there is a technique out there waiting for you to discover it. And I'm going to help you along the way. So hit subscribe to join me in seeking productivity techniques. Thank you for watching.